Recording now. Okay. Thank you so much for joining me, Kevin.
Oh, thank you, Craig. Really excited to talk to you.
Thank you. And so I guess before we really dive into it, would you be willing to kind of talk to our listeners and give a little quick rundown of your biography, since I know you've been making movies since the 90s?
Yeah. It's funny. When you say the 90s, it sounds like the 1910s or 1920s, you know? It sounds so far off.
Yeah.
But yeah, I grew up in Denver, Colorado, and I did some movies out there on VHS and Super 8, and I did one movie called The Real World, and I got a scholarship from KCNC Channel 4, which is NBC basically in Denver, and I got that actually for 3 years in a row, which was fantastic. And I made that movie Real World, and that's kind of helped me. And I went to from there I went to USC Film School, and from USC Film School I interned for 3 kind of Hollywood titans at the time. Was Linda Oakes at Sony Pictures or Columbia, and she did Prince of Tides and The Fisher King. And then I interned for Rennie Harlan. At that time, he was finishing Cliffhanger and Midnight Sun Pictures, and he was on Cutthroat Island with Gina Davis, his wife. And then I interned for John McTiernan and his wife, Donna Dubrow. And at that time, he was working on Last Action Hero, which, you know, I worked with 2 amazing directors, but I know their 2 movies weren't really well received, so I don't know if I was bad luck. But and I learned a lot. You know, I learned a lot in that. You know, man, taking the scripts with Rennie Harlan to the downstairs to the basement with this little red wagon and putting them into the fire and burning them, and just seeing all these people's dreams and work, you know, come up in flames. That really kind of took a toll on me at times, you know. I learned a lot about the industry, writing specifically, and that was the time when, you know, they had scripts. They'd send a script out on a Friday, big spec script, and on Monday they're hoping that, you know, studios are going to buy. The time with Shane Black and Joe Esterhazy, you know, with Basic Instinct and things like that. It was a magical time, you know, when I was working with Rennie Harlan downstairs. It was the kids, and that was Roland Emmerich and Dean Devlin, and they were just finishing Stargate, and they were going to be working on Independence Day. So I interned there and then finished SC, and I wrote my first script called The Method, and I went and I begged, borrowed, and stole. Got a Panavision camera from Panavision, and actually Disney helped us with post-production, and got Sean Patrick Flannery and Robert Forster and Natasha Gregson Wagner and Tyron Turner on it, and made that movie on 35 millimeter and shot it at SC, most of it. Got into Slamdance, and at that time Sundance was like the gold standard, you know. It was Sundance and Miramax and Quentin Tarantino, and we got into Slamdance, and it was, I think, Slamdance's second year, and it was just amazing going there and screening it and meeting all the people from Peter Green and Julianne Moore, and just it's really a wonderful thing. And we had the screening, and it went well. We're putting our homemade posters around town and making cards with the poster, and it was pretty cool. And we had a screening, and everybody was loving it, thinking maybe we were going to win. And in comes Steven Soderbergh with Day Trippers and Greg Mottola and Liv Schreiber and Parker Posey, and I guess he was upset that Sundance didn't take Day Trippers, and so he came in, and of course I was like, well, we're cooked. But it was fun. It was fun nonetheless, and that was a great movie. And so I did that, and then I made another movie called Downward Angel, and we did that with Matt Schultz, who starred in, he was in Fast and Furious, the first one, and actually cut a reel for Matt to show Rob Cohen and Universal, and he got on that movie. And Jonathan Banks from Breaking Bad, you know, and it was a little action movie we did, but at that time Blockbuster was the go-to, and so we turned around and sold it to Blockbuster. They were picking up movies, and it was kind of cool. In Hollywood Reporter, they had the head of Blockbuster, and they were talking about the killer bees. And on the side, it was Contaminated Man poster with William Hurt framed, and then on the other side, it was my movie Downward Angel, and that was pretty cool. And so they bought that, and from then I went on and made other films, Dark Heart and The Drop, and with Sean Young, and and then the third nail, and now we're at Willys. So I've seen a lot of changes, throughout these years, throughout these decades.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, it's really interesting, especially for, since kind of a big, I guess, industry history buff, and learning really how much where, in the 90s you had this huge boom of, well, I guess the end of the 80s and then the 90s, this boom of the kind of the independent film, and then you also had all the straight to video, everything, and then kind of how that shifted, and I know we'll probably get into it more, into kind of the business or the marketplace aspect that it is today with streaming and elements.
It was a magical time. I mean, I remember going to see like Train Spotting. Quentin Tarantino was in front of me, in the theater, and like just the hustle and bustle of LA, and the movies are made on the studios, right? And then the independent world, and that was the time too. You could go to like AFM and have a poster and get it financed. You have Steven Seagal or something on a poster, and you get your money.
No.
That was before people would do that and take the money and go buy a house in Hawaii. You know what I mean? So it was like that just stopped that, It's kind of sad because, it is what it is, but people sometimes abuse the system, and then it hurts all of us, right? So that's, and that was also, I know AFM still goes on, but those are the times, like I said, you go to AFM and you got the big posters, the magazines, and all these movies coming out, and it was crazy, But I think also then foreign countries started making their own movies, right?
Yeah.
They started doing their own things, and they kind of, changed that as well. And now you think about it, like America, even the movies that are made in America, they opened foreign before America. I remember Avengers were opening in Seoul, Korea, before it opened here. It's crazy, So yeah, a lot of changes in the industry.
Definitely.
We can talk about that if you want.
Of course. Yeah. I know before we get any further that you did have, and we talked about a little bit before recording, you did have a scare right before kind of Willys came out with coronavirus, which, of course is a very major thing right now. And if you would kind of want to talk about that and, dealing with that. And I know you were saying you were luckily able to get out of the hospital right before your son's birthday. And
yeah, it was crazy. It came on me pretty quick, and it was around right after my birthday, actually, and I went to the ER. Couldn't breathe. I was like 82% oxygen. Mm-hmm. And my wife took me to the ER, and I had COVID pneumonia. It's like blood clots in my heart. I've never been sick, I've never been sick in terms of the hospital, and never broke a bone, I played sports and all that stuff, but this was a whole new level. And I just turned 50, actually, so it was really something else. And, going in there and being vulnerable and not knowing, every day waiting and hoping good news, and it never comes. And kind of knowing it's not going to come because you don't feel good, right? In your heart, I don't feel good. So good news is not coming. And going through that, and then, I was there Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday the doctor says he's taking me to the ICU. And that was when everything was like going through CAT scans and x-rays, and my wife crying on the phone, FaceTime my kids. I have 4 kids, and trying to be the strong dad, and knowing that that's not working on the phone because they can see right through it, because my lungs, I can't really breathe, so I can hardly talk. Mm-hmm. And I would take care of my mom, who's 90, and, I didn't want her to be upset and, weaken her, and just all these things that go through your head. And there were times where I didn't think I was going to make it, and it was very difficult. And one thing I was told, was listen to the doctors and nurses, and they were just amazing people. They're heroes, every one of them. And I started to prone and do what they told me to, and it hurt. It hurt like I've never had hurt before, but I did it. I knew that was the only way to get out, and I pushed myself. Sooner or later, I started getting better. And then that good news came right after the Super Bowl when the doc told me I won the Super Bowl. and I was down to a step-down unit, and I was going to go home, and I was a survivor. It's a big wake-up call. You know, I was diagnosed with diabetes after I shot Willys, and I was just trying to get a grapple on it. I was probably in kind of a defiant phase on it too. Like, I knew I had it, but I was going to try to just, you know, do my regular thing. And for everybody that listens, man, go get checked out. Go to the doctor. You know, it's not a, you know, the old school. I remember my grandma, you know, it's like she was kind of ashamed to go to the doctor. She thought she was great. Like, it was kind of like you were weak if you went. You're not weak. You're strong. Go to the doctor, get checked out, and take care of yourself. And I didn't. And so that's what happened. So I think the diabetes coupled with the COVID just really was a cocktail for me to go down big time. And so right now, you know, I've lost like almost 50 pounds.
Oh.
And I was thin growing up, man. So, but I got the daddy weight going with the 4 kids, I'm sure. And but I'm feel good, you know, and I'm working on my diet now. I've seen a dietitian, and I'm just lucky to be alive and talking to you, Craig.
Yeah.
I went to the Frida Drive-In yesterday and saw Willys on the big screen and met all those great fans. And it was great, you know, coming out. I got to my son's 16th birthday, and the next day Willys opened, reading all the reviews and the critics and the fans, and the fans is what I love, and seeing how this movie just made them laugh and have fun and check out for 90 minutes of their life, you know, and it's just been such a blessing and such joy, you know, and I have to tell you too, you know, getting through the hospital, I wouldn't have got it without family and friends.
Yeah.
You know, I was texting friends from elementary school, just saying like a little thing that I remember them, you know, and I just told them I love them, you know, and like I said in that article I wrote, that was my punch pop, and it just really got me through.
Yeah.
So, you know, people listening, go get checked out, go to the doctor, take care of yourself. Don't be afraid to tell that person that's special to you that you love them. There's nothing wrong with that. Because we don't know how long we have on this planet, especially with what's happened now with you know, with COVID and what we've been doing through a year. You just never know, right, Craig, what's going to come down the pike. So that's it, you know, but I'm here talking to you, and we're celebrating Willys, and it's great.
Yeah, no, definitely. And yeah, I'm glad to hear that you're doing better and getting all that checked out. And I agree with you, and add on to that. I mean, while my mom is a nurse, and fortunately she kind of works more in the back now and doesn't have to be on the front lines as much. Yeah, I know having Midwestern grandparents of German descent, it was the same thing.
Yeah.
Of like they just wouldn't go to the doctor or anything.
Yep. And, you know, I wrote that article. I didn't want to detract from Willys. I didn't want to take the spotlight off, because Willys is such a fun movie, and just, you know, leave your brain at the door, just sit back and enjoy a ride. But, you know, friends were telling me, no, you should do this, you know, inspire people. And I was thinking, you know, if I write this article and I can inspire one person maybe to wear a mask and do the 6 feet apart that maybe didn't believe in this, right?
Yeah.
And it's worth it, you know? And so that's kind of why I wrote the article. It's just to say that this is real, you know, and we need to take this very seriously. And I've seen it with my own eyes. The doctors and nurses wish that the people that don't believe they could have them come in for a day, but unfortunately you can't have anyone.
Yeah.
Once you have COVID, it's a lockdown. So I couldn't even see my mother. I couldn't see my wife, my kids, and you're just staring at this wall because you have to prone.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at this wall and thinking, is this the last thing I'm going to see in my life? This white paint chipped wall. This is the last vision I'm going to have, or is it the last vision I'm going to flip around and look at the fluorescent light that's just sapping my energy from above, like Joe versus the volcano.
Yeah.
That fluorescent light that's just, you know, like, is this it? You know? So it really puts things in perspective.
Yeah. And I think I guess kind of going to Willys now, I think what's interesting, I know, you know, as part of our podcast, we'll also do reviews on screeners or things like that for other outlets. And what was so refreshing about Willys was there's kind of been, horror does this shift back and forth, where lately everybody's making these very, it seems like, brooding, atmospheric, and just like dark horror films, where this year, this year specifically, I felt like the ones that have really stood out to me are like Willys, and the ones that have kind of had like either a tongue-in-cheek element or had that comedy to it or something, because it's just like a relief.
A relief. That was exactly the word I was thinking. I think, we need that. And, I kind of modeled Willys after the movies of the 80s that I grew up with. I loved Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 and Return of the Living Dead. And some of these movies, they were just fun adventures, escapism, right? So I wanted Willys, not that it takes place in the 80s, but it has the heartbeat. It has the blood pumping through it of 80s. Because that's when I really started loving movies. Raiders was the first movie where I saw what a director did. Star Wars, of course, and I was a kid of the 70s, born in the 70s. When I saw Star Wars, it was like handed down by God. Like, I just thought that's like, God created life, then he created Star Wars, But then when I saw Raiders, I was like, wow, this is what a director does. And then I saw Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2, and I was like, wow, this is what you can do with a camera. Yeah. And that really kind of got me thinking, and just on my journey of making movies. And I remember, there was a video store that opened near me in Denver, and my mom wanted me to go get some milk and eggs and ride my bike down. And so I rode my bike down to the store to get milk and eggs. I saw this video store, and I was just enamored by it. And I went in, and I got Nightmare on Elm Street and Evil Dead, and I spent the money on it. And I went back to her, and I was like, well, the store ran out of milk and eggs, but hey, I got Nightmare on Elm Street and Evil Dead, and my sister was like, he's an addict. You have to do something about this. So I was grounded for a week, and that put off a week of seeing Evil Dead and Nightmare, which I wanted to even see more than at that point, right? Yeah. And but I definitely learned that stores usually don't run out of eggs, milk and eggs, unless it's the coronavirus, right? Unless it's COVID. Then maybe that'd be an excuse. So I learned a lesson. But no, I was a fan. I'd have slumber parties, and we'd bring Creep Show and watching all, Terminator, and just watching all the fun, rated R movies. My sister took me to see Conan in the drive-in. It was awesome. I just felt such a cool kid going to school talking about Conan. So I was a movie fan since I was young, and just realized, wanted to make them. Always did, So it's pretty exciting to work with someone like Nick Cage, Academy Award winner and great partner to put a movie together, and just a fantastic human being. I really believe in the chi of people. I know maybe some people think that's crazy, but I believe in energy, and Nick has great energy. He's a good man, and so it was just great to work with him. We didn't have one creative disagreement on Willys. We saw it eye to eye. He worked his tail off. We had a ball, man. It was hard work, but then the cast and crew, had so much fun from beginning to end. And I kind of feel like the movie shows that, like when you watch it after the time, you can feel we're having a good time making it, That's important to me. I like happy sets. I like crews. I like crews like a family, and that to me is when you get the best work. I know other people, other directors or other actors, they like turmoil. They like, chaos. Yeah. They thrive on chaos. There's a lot of people that do that, and God bless them, but I'm just not one of them. I like positivity. I've always been that way, and I like people getting along and laughing, and that's me. So that was us on Willys. Yeah. And just a great crew. Couldn't have made that movie without them.
And that's something that's interesting too, is that kind of that element that it becomes very tangible when there is a crew that is happy being there. And same with I've talked about in some of recent Nick Cage movies that I've discussed, or even on this podcast. I know others have as well, but he's one of those actors where he's a huge star, Academy Award winner, all this stuff, but that there's that back and forth of, you have people saying, there's like that over the topness or whatever it may be, But what I appreciate so much about Cage is that, like, no matter what the movie is, no matter, he always commits 100%, where there's so many actors of his caliber that do a low budget movie or they do whatever, and it seems like, they just
phone it in.
Yeah, they're collecting the paycheck or whatever it may be.
Collecting a paycheck, yeah. No, you're right. Every movie, he's 110%. And, because you know why? He's a film lover. He's a film buff. I mean, every time he'd show up, he had a Clockwork Orange shirt on, when he was working out with the action, with the stunts, or a Bruce Lee shirt or a Godzilla shirt, you know what I mean? Like, he's a film fan. So, it was funny. I read he didn't tell me this, but I did read an article about him. He said that he knows he can't control the movies when they're done. He just does his performance. But he said if he can do 3 good scenes in a movie, then he knows that he did his job. And I was thinking, after I read that, I was like, well, for me, I mean, Willys, in my opinion, he did every scene great.
Yeah.
And he did this, and he doesn't talk, and that's a very hard thing without dialogue. And I think a lot of actors will shy away from that and be nervous about it. That's why we made the offer to Nick. There wasn't one other actor that I wanted on this movie. It was Nick, and the producers felt the same way. And we just made the offer and went for it, and he loved it. He got it, and I knew he would. Just knew it in my heart, and I can't say enough great things about Nick Cage.
Yeah. So I guess that was one of the questions that one of my co-hosts had that was big on it, was the role always meant to be kind of without any dialogue for Nick Cage, or was it was there any back and forth of he should have a line at the end or anything like that, or was it strictly,
when I read the script originally, it was no dialogue. Gio wrote a great, fun script, but at the end he had a line when he went to fight Willy. It was like, "Come at me, bro."
Okay.
And I was like, I'm just not a big fan of that line. And I was thinking, well, if he has a line, it's got to be like live an iconic, because he doesn't say anything this whole movie, and then he's going to say something, and that's going to be really, really important. And so I was thinking, well, can it be something like an Evil Dead, Groovy, or Yoshievich, Let's Go, something fun like that? As the movie evolved, should it be, it's birthday time, and I got together with Nick, and he's like, the janitor doesn't speak unless he feels he needs to, and he doesn't need to, because he looked at his character point of view of the janitor was, he looks at those creatures as trash. They're trash to him.
Yeah.
He doesn't respect them, right? That was what he was going for. So, and he was channeling like Charles Bronson from Once Upon a Time in the West, one of his favorite movies. And so we decided, like, no lines. But what's kind of cool is I kind of do that little, it's slow motion, but I do that little push in when he comes out of the kitchen, and I'm getting the audience gearing up for, here's the line, because I do right up to him, and he doesn't say anything. And I just thought that was fun, because at the time we think he's going to say something, and he doesn't. So I really not only loved what he did, but I liked the whole idea that we're having the janitor not say anything. I thought it was a ballsy move, and it's hard, man. It's hard to do that. And I knew this movie had to be visually entertaining, and so I did a 70-page shot list before we shot the movie, and I detailed every scene, every shot with every scene. So I knew going in, I had a game plan, and I knew this movie wasn't a movie where we're gonna just find ourselves with the camera and all that. It's like, no, this is a very precise film, stylish film. So going in it, I kind of knew, like, this is how I'm going to do the janitor, this is what I'm going to shoot when he does the punch pop, and so that really helped. And I got about 85 to 90% of it, I feel, when I finished the movie. So I'm a big fan of preparation.
That actually, I don't think we've had somebody on yet who's really talked about shot lists and stuff like that. And I know, most people know what they are that are film fans or anything like that anymore. Mm-hmm. But there is kind of these, like, the two-party, where a lot of people do shot lists, but, there's like the two parties of thought, where there's the ones that are almost very prepped, much like that, or, the ones that just kind of, it feels like they just go in and, they kind of have a general idea, but
Yeah, they have an idea, but they kind of find the movie, right, while they make it, I had 20 days to make this movie.
Yes.
And there were too many decisions to make. Like, for example, just the scene, I called it the oven cam or the fridge cam when he's going in and putting the punch pop in the fridge or cleaning the oven. Like, you have to saw the back of a fridge off. You have to saw the back of an oven off to get the camera. So you can't go in and go, hey, let's do an oven cam shot or something, because guess what? It's going to take them hours to do that, and you're just burning money and time, right?
Yeah.
So prep-wise, I knew I had to do that. So that's what, same thing with, like, the fights. Like, we went over the fights. You can't just show up the day with stunts and go, hey, let's just do this and this and this. You'll be hours, So always thinking, always prepping. I talked to Nick constantly every night, almost, about things, so he knew we were all on the same page, because that's what I wanted. I wanted us all come to set, and it's like, okay, let's rock and roll, and that was the plan. So yeah, this movie wasn't that. I just couldn't get away with that, and that's really not me, to be honest with you. I like prep. When I read the script, I just saw it visually, and so I worked with my DP, Dave Newbert, who did an amazing job, and we sat down, and I just was telling him what I wanted to do and stuff. So we worked on the shot list, and we did it even with the lens and the can. Like, we had it all planned out, because, again, I didn't have a techno crane and all the fun tools that you would have on a big studio movie, but I was in the mindset, like, hey, we're just going to shoot this movie by any means necessary. Give me a shopping cart. We'll make it a dolly. Like, it was my attitude. Grunge, guerrilla filmmaking, grindhouse.
Yeah.
And the two things I really thought when I was making Willys was punk rock and a rave at 2 a.m. Like, that was like my vibe on this movie, I wanted this movie, it's funny, I've never been done drugs, I'm such a square, but I wanted this movie to be like an LSD acid trip. Like, it's a, I read a really cool review where someone said this movie looks like it was just dunked in acid and LSD. And I was like, that's an awesome review,
Yeah.
I actually heard people, like, dropping shrooms on this film and watching it and stuff, and it's like, that's cool, Yeah. I don't do it, I've never done it, but that's cool, So I just wanted to make a movie, like a Midnight Madness movie for college kids, and man, it was great seeing my kids and their teens in high school, and they're having a 30 people watch party, and that just made me so filled my heart of joy, And I know we can't be there watching the movie together. The whole idea, like I said, was Midnight Madness, Toronto Midnight Madness, maybe coming out on Halloween, and it was just, one of those movies I felt like, again, like Evil Dead. You drive an hour and a half with your friends to go see in some podunk town in a theater, and that was kind of the way I was wanting to do Willys, but it's actually worked out really well for it to come out and people seeing it, and they have watch parties now, and it's a different time, like we just talked about with COVID, right, and the streaming, and you have to embrace it. You have to embrace change, evolve or die. And it's funny because, I would show up to the Willy meetings, everybody would have their laptops, all the crew, Molly Coffey, production designer, and Dave Newbert, and I'd have my bag, and I just pull out my paperwork, and it was like I'm an analog guy in a digital world, and but with streaming and what's going on, like, this is the brave new world, man. This is where we're at. So evolve or die, so I think Willys has done pretty well, coming out and people seeing it, and like I say, watch parties and sharing it on Twitter and Instagram and stuff like that. And it's really cool talking to you because, growing up, I was all about Siskel and Ebert. It was like when you working also, when I was interning, it's like Hot Reporter, Variety, Time, maybe Time Magazine, and LA Times and New York Times. That was it.
Yeah.
And Siskel and Ebert, it's like those reviews were it. And if you didn't get good reviews, it was like someone died in the office, okay? But now, power to the people, right? Because you and everybody else are like, critics and fans and bloggers and podcasts, and there's just so much out there now. And it's really cool when the audience really reacts to the movie, and that's what you intended. And so I read some of these reviews, and of course we get bad reviews, and some people can't stand the movie. But I knew it was a tightrope movie. I knew it was a movie that, it could be in a really bad movie. I mean, it's funny, some people think that, but honestly, like, dealing with the weasel and an animatronic weasel and all his friends. Like it could have been, and that's what you brought up about horror and how a lot of people are doing these really like hardcore, edgy pictures. I knew I couldn't get away with that. I couldn't do a Rob Zombie treatment to this because it's just so ridiculous, you know. And so I wanted to have fun, and so it was funny, like setting up shots, and we fetched the camera. We're like, is this too much? And I always think it's Nick Cage versus a 7-foot animatronic weasel. Nothing is too much, right? And so I would just go for it, and it just felt really liberating artistically too. Like we just got to go for it. I feel like the movie's very self-aware of its, it's like it knows what it is. I'm not, it's so funny. Like I get some of these reviews, they take it so seriously, and it's like, man, just lighten up, Francis. It's like, come on, it's just a fun movie, and just relax and enjoy it. I mean, it's Nick Cage beating the crap out of animatronics. I mean, how cool is that?
Yeah, I agree completely.
I'm sorry I go on rants, by the way. I apologize.
No problem at all. No, I agree completely. I mean, with that sentiment and everything about it. And I like that you were kind of saying the evolve or die because, I mean, that has been a consistent topic that I kind of will come to, especially now within this past year, that there are these people that are holding on so much to like this, the old school mentality of Hollywood that was the 80s and 90s or whatever it may be. And, and then you have the streaming and you kind of have, I have that same sentiment of that, it's always going to keep moving forward, even if, theaters open in the same way. It's just, you have to be able to, like, as you said, evolve or die. And I think that's a great kind of sentiment to all of it.
Yeah, I think too, like having my kids help me, because, I back in the day, I'd be like, "Are you kidding me? You're gonna watch Lawrence of Arabia on your phone? Like you're nuts, like you're not that, no. But now with content is such an interesting word because content is, you can look up a YouTube video about fixing your dryer at home, and then you could watch Lawrence of Arabia. You know what I mean? And it's like everything's just content, and Lawrence of Arabia still is, you should see it in a theater, you should see it on 70 millimeter, like all that stuff. But I realized, like, even with my kids, like these classic movies and stuff, talking about these actors and, even like Marlon Brando, man, like they don't even know who he is, and I had them watch Apocalypse Now, and they know him from that. But like, I need to have them watch Streetcar and On the Waterfront. But, I had my son watch The Great Escape. He thought it was boring. He was just, and I'm like, how can you think this is boring? It's got Steve McQueen and James Garner, and like it's a World War II movie, and these guys are like planning a great, but you realize it, and he's a video gamer, man. He's a gamer, and so he's more active in the gamers. And actually, I think Willy's I wanted it for some of the gamers, like the leveling up, like the janitors moving the different levels, of the fights and stuff like that, and so. Yeah, it's just a different time now. My daughter's getting me into Stranger Things, and it's a cool show. It's funny because I tell her, well, I lived the 80s. Like, I'm seeing the 80s, but I lived it, but it's cool, it's a cool show. But, yeah, I think that helps, and I think that, with COVID and everything, you have to. We're in a different world, and God bless, technology, right, that we can do this and stream and everything else, and streaming's here to stay. I don't see it going anywhere. Yeah. We just got a big screen, 120-foot screen and a projector. So it's really cool because like we watch Soul, and I felt like we're in the theater, and like the next day you remember the movie, and it was like I was at the theater watching it on a big screen. Is it as a big screen as a movie theater? No. I mean, I love the old theaters, like when I grew up in Denver, the Continental Theater, where it was one screen, it was 70 millimeter. I saw Return of the Jedi there, and Batman, and like amazing movies. They don't have that now. It's all multiplex, right? So we've seen the progression of how cinemas have gone, and now this is the new thing, streaming, and it'll come out in the theater, and then 17 days later or 30 days later, it's going to come out. And I hope theaters bounce back. I love movie theaters. My kids want to go. I mean, my daughter wants to go with her friends to the theater. Like, I don't think, date nights and all that, like, I don't think you can take that away, but it is a different world, and it's just we're going to have to evolve or die.
Yeah.
And I want to evolve.
Yeah. No, when I was in LA for several years living there, I was a projectionist with the Chinese theater, and so that kind of spoiled me for a long time. But even that,
very cool.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah, even that, a lot of their kind of shifted to more multiplex, except the main the original.
Did you do, when you were projectionist, did you do film at all, or were you more like all digital?
I did some film. I was hired when Interstellar, it was like the IMAX flagship, and so Interstellar had to be 70 millimeter on IMAX, and that's when I came in. But then,
did you have the big platters?
Yeah, I mean, with that 70 millimeter IMAX, that thing, each thing was like 500 pounds. I don't know. It was intense.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
Wow. I was a projectionist at my school, and so I was doing stuff for like classes, and then on Friday nights they would have screenings. It would be really cool, like retro screenings and stuff. And I would be the projectionist there. So I know all about the film, threading it through and rolling. I mean, all that stuff, and it's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, and it can kind of get unhinged so easily. People don't realize it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what's your feelings? I mean, you love film? Are you happy with digital, or? I
am. I'm kind of in the same boat. I think for me, it's one of those things that a good story or a good movie or anything should be, enjoyed no matter what. You look at even a lot of the like Japanese cinema that came out of the early 2000s, they were using, basically VHS or early digital. And even though the picture quality isn't the best, it's still it still captures your attention. It still holds you. And I think that's kind of what's most important is the story, is the enjoyment or, engaging an audience. For me, as I'm getting older, there was a part of me, obviously when I was doing projection work where I was probably more a purist at points, but no, now, especially as I have a 2-year-old, and so now I'm just fine. Watching it any way I can get it.
Yeah, sure. That's great.
I guess what I wanted to kind of get into, and you were talking about it you had 20 days to kind of shoot the whole film, and basically how the industry is going now, where you either have like these under $10 million films and they want to try and go lower and lower if they can, or you have these films that are tentpole that are over $100 million, or they're getting higher than that now, and it's losing that middle range. I was just curious about, and Willys has done really well in it. I think it helps with just the concept and the fun element of it and everything. But for people listening and anybody that's interested in kind of getting their own movie, like past all of the content and to really stand out, was there any certain ways you had to work Willys, or like for marketing that was different than, when you were doing films in the 90s or the 2000s, or has that shifted any?
I mean, I shot pretty much every one of my movies on film. I did the drop digital. That was when digital started coming out. Did on the Panasonic. I remember actually going to the screening of Phantom Menace, and it was the first digital screening. It was in Burbank, and seeing the evolution and everything. Then I shot Willys digital, and actually I asked Nick too what he preferred, because he's old school and he's done so much film, and he said he liked digital. He's like, I think he was telling me, I think it was Birdie. He did the monologue or something, and the film got jacked up.
Oh, really?
And he's like, I really don't have to deal with that. And it happened to me too. I did one of my films at SC on Super 16 in a lab, screwed it up, and so it was kind of cool. I was working for John McTiernan, and his wife Donna Dubrow basically wrote me a check, and I went and reshot my film. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Of her to do that. But I mean, digital's here to stay, right? And, digital's done a lot. I mean, it's pretty amazing. Now, I'm such a big physical media fan.
Yeah.
I've got 2 bookcases of my Blu-rays and Steelbooks and stuff. And what's sad is, like, the kids will want to watch a movie or something like that, and I'll just, like, stream it, boom, and it's like, gosh, why am I even holding on to this stuff? So, I do love physical media, though. I do love it, and I want to support it. But I don't know, it's going to be interesting, technology's moving so fast, and the cameras are just getting incredible, right? I mean, just amazing. It's going leaps and bounds from where it started, right? And I still love, Scorsese and Nolan and Tarantino and Spielberg, like, them wanting to shoot film. I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
But for someone like me in the indie world, I'm not going to be able to convince the investors, producers to do film. Like, I'm just not there. It's funny, I read that The Sound of Metal, which was a great movie. I love that movie, and did such a great job. And I read an interview with the director, and he shot it on film. And they asked him, well, why did you shoot it? And he said, because I wanted to. I was like, wow, man, like, that's really cool that he got them to say yeah, to do it. Because in this day and age, man, going up to the producers from, investors and saying, yeah, I want to do this on film, like, they'll look at you like you're nuts.
Yeah.
I agree with you with the stories. It's like, it's about the story. It's about the narrative that you're telling, and then how you want to tell it, But at the end of the day, it's the stories. Stories is what moves people, So we need to still concentrate on the stories.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can get wrapped up with too much technology. I remember at SC, I saw James Cameron. He came in and showed his director cut of The Abyss, and he talked about how technology should go to the director. Director shouldn't go to the technology.
Mm-hmm.
And so we live in interesting times. There's a lot of stuff out. I mean, if you told me, now you're going to be able to shoot something on your iPhone, that's just crazy.
Yeah.
And you can. I think Soderbergh did it, right?
Yeah, he did it, and then there was the, I can't think of the director, the Tangerine was shot on an iPhone.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there was a couple, now.
So we're getting it there, right? We're getting to that point. So we're living interesting times,
Definitely. And I think, like I was saying, I think Willys, especially, it is one of those ones that stands out. I agree with you that I still will go out and purchase physical media just because I have a love for it completely. But, yeah.
Yep, I do too. Just like vinyl and everything else.
Yeah.
I love it, But my kids, they don't, my son, the gamer, like, he just downloads his games. He doesn't like buying discs. For me, I would like discs because it's like you're spending money. You have something that you bought that you can have and hold.
Yeah.
But to him, and my daughter, she watches movies and shows on iPhones, like, no big deal to her. So it's like, you're not going to change these kids, and they're the new generation, right?
Yeah.
So we can sit there and fight all we want and talk about film, and you should be watching movies here, and you can't, you're going to lose. The new generation's here, and so evolve or die.
Yeah. So, it's been a kind of great having you and chatting about and learning about this, but, kind of part of the podcast as well is we like to really look at obscure, independent works and that are considered genre, but we, normally it's horror related for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any movie that is kind of underseen that you really champion and you really think more people should get eyes on? It's kind of just our bonus question for everybody.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if this is underseen, but I loved it. And actually, there's 2 movies, and they really inspired me on Willys. One was the movie Revenge.
Okay.
That came out a couple years ago. Man, that movie was incredible. It's French,
mm-hmm.
I believe.
I think it's on Shudder.
Yeah, I love that movie.
Yeah.
Another one was Let the Corpses Tan.
Okay.
And that was also very inspirational for Willys, So those 2 come to mind.
Okay. Oh, those sound great. And so is there, for people that are interested is there anything post Willys coming up that you're working on? And then how can people find you through any sort of website, social media, anything at all?
Yeah, so I'm working on a really cool Halloween project, like a throwback to Amblin years, you know.
Okay.
I'm working on that. I'm working on a really cool action horror script, kind of a genre. You know, I want to make movies like Willys, fun movies, genre movies, people that just really, you know, enjoy it and everything. So that's kind of what I've been working on. And then I may have another one here looking pretty good, so we'll see there. Another kind of action horror. So that's kind of, I'm keeping in that genre. And then I'm on Instagram, I'm Kevin Lewis Official.
Okay.
And then Twitter, it's like Kevin Lewis Movie Maker, MOVIMAKR. But yeah, and on Twitter, you know, I put a lot of the articles that I've done or talked about, you know, and you can read more about Willys and things like that. So, yeah.
Oh, amazing. And it's been such a pleasure having you. And thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you, Craig. Had a really good time. Thank you.
Bloodhound Pix podcast is part of the Morbidly Beautiful podcast network. Produced by Josh Lee, Craig Draheim, and Kyle Hintz. Music by Raymond Seed. Editing by Kyle Hintz.